Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Matt Harry. I'm one of the investment partners at Apollo Crypto, and I'm here to bring you a brief, less than 10-minute, hopefully, presentation. This is our next installment in our bite-sized basics series, which will give you a base level understanding of Ethereum. Just like the other presentation decks in this series, these slides are purposefully content heavy. That is meant to give you a reference document. So it's been done on purpose that you can take away and refer back to. So let's just jump straight into this. Usual disclaimer, of course, in terms of an overview of what Ethereum is. The Ethereum blockchain was initially deployed in 2015 by a team led by Vitalik Buterin, who many of you will have heard of. He's a Russian-born Canadian computer programmer. He is the most well-known, I believe, of the 8 founders, and the only founder that I think is still actively working on the protocol. So there are other guys like Charles Hoskinson, who later created Cardano, Gavin Wood, who founded Polkadot, and of course, Joseph Lubin, who's very well known in the industry, who founded Consensus. That's a blockchain startup incubator for those looking to build on top of the Ethereum ecosystem or blockchain. So Ethereum is a decentralized open source blockchain, which I think many of you are now aware of, platform that enables the creation and operation of smart contracts and decentralized applications, or dApps as we refer to them. Ether, ETH, is the Ethereum blockchain's native cryptocurrency, and it is used to pay for transaction fees and services on the Ethereum network. A blockchain, I think most of you are probably aware of what that is, but it is a chain of blocks where each block contains multiple transactions. In the case of the Ethereum blockchain, it's approximately 220 transactions per block, but theoretically the blockchain supports over 1,000 transactions per block on the Ethereum network. So it is decentralized, no single entity controls it, which contrasts with the traditional banking system, which is very centralized entities controlling all of those processes. And commercial models. And we see with the Ethereum blockchain transparency and security through cryptography and immutability of data. So in terms of how Ethereum works, of course, initially a user needs to initiate a transaction, so send a transaction or execute a smart contract. Then we see this process of verification. So that's where validators have to validate transactions before they're added to the blockchain. Similar, I guess, to the role that miners play in relation to Bitcoin. However, Ethereum is a proof of stake consensus model rather than a proof of work consensus model, which is what Bitcoin runs on. So in terms of that verification process, in order to be a validator, an entity has to stake 32 ETH, and that stake acts as collateral that can be confiscated if the validator attempts to act maliciously. So that mechanism is in place to keep validators honest, and the validators basically run software on a computer connected to the Ethereum network, validating or verifying transactions. And for doing that work, they earn Ethereum, which is paid out of transaction fees and block rewards. So those transactions are grouped into blocks, and then they are added to the chain once consensus is reached or they are verified by the validators. That's happening approximately every 15 seconds. Now, in terms of how smart contracts actually work, Ethereum's use of smart contracts has really changed the game for how financial and other transactions are or indeed aren't mediated, as is the case with a smart contract. Smart contracts are basically code or programs stored on the blockchain that automatically execute when certain conditions are met. They eliminate the need for intermediaries, so you're reducing greatly the cost of those transactions and the potential for fraud. And smart contracts allow for increased efficiency due to contracts being automatically settled once predefined parameters have been met. So removing those intermediaries, if you think banks are trustworthy, they've certainly proven time and again that they are not. There are many cases of widespread illegal levying of fees, forging of customer signatures, spoofing of financial markets, and even big names like Wells Fargo, JP Morgan, Goldman's are involved, not to mention HSBC knowingly laundering $1 billion worth of drug proceeds out of Mexico in the last years. So there is, in the last years, sorry, I should say, there is so much room for fraud and manipulation that does not exist, or in large part has been removed when dealing with coded smart contracts. An example of a smart contract could be a contract that automatically releases funds for a house purchase once all conditions like the passing of inspections have been satisfied. So you're potentially removing the mortgage broker in that scenario, and even the bank in the case of peer-to-peer lending arrangements, which incidentally can also be executed via a smart contract. So really disintermediating financial transactions and removing what are now really becoming rent seekers from that process. So it's much cheaper and much more efficient new way of doing business. In terms of Ethereum's importance as an innovation, before Ethereum came along, blockchains like Bitcoin, which has been around since 2009, were limited to simple value transfer transactions. Ethereum introduced programmability to blockchains. So we saw the arrival of programmable money, basically. And it also broadened the scope of innovation in crypto and decentralized finance, which spawned the arrival of things like peer-to-peer lending, non-custodial exchanges or DEXs, decentralized exchanges, and non-fungible tokens. So if you look there, in terms of peer-to-peer lending, that's basically connecting the borrower and lending directly. So removing the bank and creating efficiency and lowering costs. Non-custodial exchanges or DEXs, that's basically infrastructure through which crypto holders can connect and trade directly from wallet to wallet, peer-to-peer, without having to send any assets to a crypto exchange. As we've seen recently, those exchanges do get hacked. So the decentralized exchange infrastructure has been very popular amongst crypto users. And of course, we mentioned their non-fungible tokens, NFTs, which are a really exciting technology. They're far bigger and more useful than JPEGs of penguins, but perhaps a conversation for another time. So Ethereum democratized technology, making it simple and cheap to develop a wide array of innovations. So small developers can now compete with large players or large corporates. So we're really seeing those small devs playing larger games without the need to be super well resourced like large corporations. And of course, the other type of democratization here is the democratization of the financial world, access to the financial world. So things like having bank accounts, applying for a mortgage, other financial services that the developed world kind of takes for granted and has access to, the underdeveloped world does not or hasn't previously. So now with crypto and more specifically smart contract-based solutions, we are seeing the inclusion of what we refer to as the unbanked into the financial system. Financial literacy is another issue altogether, but we now have crypto-based infrastructure that creates inclusion. So that's a huge element in lifting people out of poverty. So we've seen a huge developer community spring up around ETH. This led to constant improvement and innovation in the space, which is quite different to what was happening prior to ETH on Bitcoin. And of course, we've also seen the enablement of the tokenization of real world assets and stablecoins. We go into those in a little bit of detail in the DeFi presentation, so feel free to reach out for that one if you haven't already seen it. So where we are today, Ethereum 2.0 recently moved to the proof of stake consensus mechanism to address its scalability and energy consumption issues. So we spoke of proof of stake a little earlier. We're seeing the arrival of layer 2 or scaling solutions like Optimism and Arbitrum, which handle transactions off the main chain for speed and efficiency. So it's all about enhancing throughput and reducing costs, those layer 2 solutions. So Optimism can process up to 4,000 transactions per second, and theoretically Arbitrum up to 40,000 is what they've stated as an objective, but perhaps in reality right now a little bit closer to Optimism. But the point remains that we're seeing these layer 2 solutions bringing or enhancing scalability and cost on the Ethereum network really rapidly. With the rise of the tokenization of real-world assets, Ethereum has been slated as the blockchain of choice for major TradFi players looking to develop in that space. For example, BlackRock, and also an example a little bit closer to home, the Apollo Fund. We are looking to tokenize one of our funds as well on the Ethereum blockchain. So it remains one of the top cryptocurrencies by market cap, and is often seen as the backbone of DeFi and the NFT market. So you see there are a number of projects that are utilizing the Ethereum network to build on top of. There's plenty of action, plenty of activity, lots of things being built. We expect this asset to maintain and increase in value as we head into this next evolution in the crypto markets with institutional acceptance and clearer regulations. And that's it from me for today. If you'd like to learn more, please feel free to reach out to myself or Henrik. Our details are there on your screen, and I will speak to you next time. Thanks for joining. Bye for now.